really most medical practices, life in general. It's kind of dictating what we do with our lives today. And so I wanted to talk with Dr. Raj and get his insight on what's going on, at least in the UK, in medical practices. So Dr. Raj, welcome, and maybe you can give us a little bit of background as well about yourself.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, I'm a practicing spinal surgeon. I work in trauma and orthopedics. And like most doctors here, I have a part-time role in the National Health Service where I practice spinal surgery. And then I work in several private hospitals. So we have, as you know, a split system here, but most of us do work on the government side in the National Health Service, and we have our own private practices beyond that. A few years ago, I switched half my interest into lifestyle medicine. So as you know, Neetu and I qualified in lifestyle medicine. So we hold a degree or a diploma with the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine. And that is our real passion. And it drives our day-to-day practice also.
Okay, so for lifestyle medicine, can you define that for someone who is not familiar?
Yes, indeed. I mean, lifestyle medicine is a foundational medicine system that's only begun to get realized recently because we've recognized, or doctors have recognized that in fact a lot of disorders that we treat have mainly lifestyle to blame. So if people have a poor diet and a poor lifestyle for whatever reason, it causes these chronic illnesses, which all we're doing in the current system of medicine is just controlling. So it's disease management rather than disease reversal or disease treatment, which is what we all got into medicine for.
Right.
So lifestyle medicine actually runs in parallel together with general systems of medicine or Western medicine as we know it. It is foundational and it has 5 or 6 pillars that are key to it. I mean, one of the key things is a healthy nutritionist diet. The second is we all need adequate sleep. We need to avoid certain substances or substance abuse. So elements like alcohol or smoking or habits that are addictive. We also need to relax. We have to, as Dr. Clapper said quite rightly, reduce the stresses in our life. And all this goes into lifestyle medicine, and we can treat several chronic illnesses that seem to be affecting our society much more so than we recognized before with these methods.
Okay, well, it sounds like most of the things that you just described also serve to boost the immune system as well, which I think it's very important at this time. So what are the things that people can do to boost their immune system, and what are you seeing happening with medicine right now as a result of the coronavirus? Are more of these principles in our immune boosting things being adopted? All these things, you can elaborate on all these things.
I think people still are doing what they've done for ages, but I think increasingly, and particularly after this epidemic, I'm hoping that people recognize that there are lots of things you can do to boost your immunity, starting from your diet. So we follow a very simple plant-based diet, but we are doing some additional things these days to boost our immunity. Only time will tell whether it served us well, but
right.
I think in general, a healthy whole food plant-based diet is the bedrock of boosting your immunity. So in addition, I mean, we get up every morning and start with the juice of half a lemon or a full lemon sometimes in slightly warm water, just so that we get our vitamin C dose. And in fact, you can get all your vitamin C requirements from a single orange. But this gives us that additional boost of vitamin C, which I think is particularly important these days. We then go on to have a little shot of turmeric in orange juice and with a bit of pepper in it. Turmeric is known to be very anti-inflammatory and also boosts your immune system. In addition, I saw you drinking a kombucha there, and that
Yes.
is a fantastic thing. So it's like a probiotic. So it's fermented foods. So either you can have sauerkraut or have a kombucha, and all these things go to boost your gut immunity and enhance your immunity. We've added mushrooms to our diet, and that again improves your immune reactions and makes you more resistant to the kind of virus that we are seeing floating around these days everywhere. In addition, of course, all the other principles of lifestyle medicine are key. One can get very stressed out by what you see on Instagram and all the available information, but it's best to take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, in the sense that you've got to adapt to it without getting overstressed about it. And it's vitally important, I think, that we get all our sleep requirements fulfilled, because otherwise your immune system really takes a kick. And you could find yourself susceptible, not just to the coronavirus, but influenza or the common flu virus also, and make yourself really quite run down.
Yeah, I guess anything that's going around. So all these things together will significantly increase the chances of you just remaining in a healthy, balanced state. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
All right, and when I say significant, like, I know I've heard people say before, like a certain percentage of illnesses are as a result of lifestyle. Do you have a certain percent? Do you follow that? I mean, is it a large percentage? Is it a small percentage? Do you know what number?
I would say the largest, most people fall into the bracket of having some lifestyle related disorder. I mean, we've kind of almost accepted that, and quite wrongly, that people as they get older will become hypertensive or overweight, or they'll have diabetes or some other lifestyle related disorder. Often patients just think that if there's a family history of coronary artery disease or heart disease, they're likely to get it. But in truth, it is what our lifestyle really is pulling the trigger. Genetics just loads the gun. So I think all these are related to the way we interact with our environment. And food forms a very large percentage of what leads to these disorders.
Okay, so you say most people have these lifestyle issues. So at least 50%. We say at least 50% of everything, right?
Absolutely.
And then like for me, I know that you named a few things there. I know that 20 years ago, I'm 50 now, but when I turned 30, I received a diagnosis of high cholesterol, and that's what got me really going down the path of nutrition and trying to figure out why that number was high. And then I recognized it was the food. You know, it was like certain things you just shouldn't be eating if you want to keep your cholesterol down below, you know, any kind of an area where you shouldn't be in. You just need to remove those foods that would cause that condition. So that's what I did, and just kept learning from that point. And you know, I'm very thankful for physicians like yourself that really understand the relationship between the lifestyle and then just remaining in a healthy balance, because that is just so important. And I wish there was more of it, but at least you're out there doing it.
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I forgot to mention, of course, Mike, exercise. And in this time when we are all confined, I mean, as you know, Britain has gone into a lockdown since last night. Well, not a complete lockdown. There's still some movement around, but there are some stringent regulations, and not more than 2 people can be seen out and about. There are some essential services, of course, like medical services. You're allowed to go and get some essential food and so on, as long as you maintain your social distancing. But in this time, it's vitally important that, and the Prime Minister has allowed us to get out once a day for our exercise outdoors. And the weather is changing here. It's lovely. It's springtime.
Good.
But over the weekend, there was chaos. I mean, there were a lot of people in the parks. Social distancing was not observed. There were a lot of people on the underground metro service or the train service, and absolutely no social distancing there. So this is going to just go through the sky if people don't maintain discipline. But it's vitally important to get your exercise, and all of us can do some simple bodyweight exercises, calisthenics as we call it. We can do some resistance trainings. You don't need very fancy machines for it. All you need is a few dumbbells or resistance bands. And as I said, you can do a lot of it with your body weight. So simple press-ups and sit-ups and so on will keep you energetic and going over this period.
Right. Yeah, I know I started back into my push-ups, which don't require anything, and then the plank to strengthen the core, but nothing needed for that. You just get in the right position, and then that's your exercise.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. And what about aerobic exercise? Just moving, what's the importance of that?
Well, I think aerobic exercise, I think if you generally move much more than we all move, and it's easy to just stand up half the time. In fact, as you know, the couch or the sofa is now known as the new cigarette. Or the
I gotta get up. I need a treadmill desk.
I was planning to do this on the treadmill, Mike, but I thought that would be a little too much. But as you know, I mean, if you just build it into your day-to-day life. So in fact, if you go down in the morning to make your coffee or your lemon juice, lemon water these days, just do 5 incline press-ups while you're waiting for the kettle to warm up a little. I think it's vitally important just to build it in your day-to-day life. I mean, we luckily have 2 rescue dogs, so we enjoy walking them, and we walk them for 3 or 4 miles a day in the local parks. But we build it into our day, so we get plenty of aerobic exercise in addition to the resistance work that we do.
That's what I hear. I hear that some type of purposeful exercise is the type that you're most likely to continue with, right? If you're just going to the gym here and there or doing random things, it's not likely to become a habit. But if there's a real purpose behind it, right? Like the dogs need walking, well, then you're probably going to do that every day.
Exactly, yes. I mean, if you go to the blue zones, and Dan Buettner's says that the people there just build it into their lives. So they're vibrant, they're active, and their quality of life, or the health span, as we call it, rather than lifespan.
Okay.
Health span is so much more important because they're out and about, still working in their fields till their 90s, or even quite often the centenarians are out there doing something purposefully.
That's wonderful. Okay. And how about, what have you seen most recently or heard from your colleagues about what's going on in the medical practice now because of coronavirus? Are people taking extra precautions in the clinical settings?
Yes, I think some things have changed. We are using technology to our advantage. It's not quite the same as seeing somebody sit opposite you, but then we have to adapt. And I'm doing a lot of my consultations over the telephone, but I think this is fantastic what we're doing right now, because I can see you well, and it would be lovely. I mean, I'm going to start connecting with my patients on Zoom or Skype. And I think it would be a great way forward for, I mean, in modern day medicine, half or more than half the problem can be diagnosed by just taking a good history. You don't really need to do any complicated examination. Yes, sometimes you do, and sometimes it's inadequate just to talk to somebody or on a Skype line. But I think because of this crisis, we are resorting to that and mitigating a lot of suffering without having to encounter somebody face to face. And even if we do, we try and keep that social distancing still up. So in other words, 6 feet or so apart. And we try and do as quick an examination or as meaningful an examination as we can that will serve our purpose.
Okay, yeah, because otherwise if you're too close, you just be transmitting that virus if someone suspected to have it, right, over and over again.
That's true. And as you know about this virus, I mean, a lot of people are not really symptomatic.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a bit of a prodromal phase before the symptoms come on. And even if they do come on, they can be quite mild in a significant population. So particularly the children and young people may come to you and, if you could pass it on then to several of your patients. So we have to be just as careful as the public do. I mean, it's an odd virus that really seems to leap from one person to another in the aerosols or the fomites that we touch. So we have to take all what our governments are telling us really quite seriously, because otherwise hospitals will get overwhelmed. I mean, there's just not enough ventilators to go around everywhere.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully the best outcome will happen and we won't get into that situation. And I know you and I were talking before this interview about what you see going forward from this point, especially with the coronavirus. And I think that the one thing people can do is strengthen their immune system. And then you talk about lifestyle medicine, and most of that involves immune system strengthening. Where do you see both yourself, Dr. Raj, and your wife, Dr. Nitu, and maybe your own desires going forward with medicine, especially because of coronavirus?
Yes, I think we've learned a few things from the corona. I mean, it's not the first epidemic, but it's probably a pandemic after a long time after the Spanish flu in 1918. It's the one that has really spread wide. But all of it stems from a similar source, our interaction with animals and birds in particular. I mean, I think there's so much to eat, and if we take on board what the Eat Lancet group of scientists have suggested, or the Canadian food plate, for instance, there's plenty of food to go around if we go for a plant-based source of food rather than going for an animal source of food. And in fact, our desire for eating those kind of foods is what is causing these viruses to mutate and pass on from animal or bird to human beings, and then it spreads very widely. In fact, the unusual thing about this virus is, of course, it's quite new and novel, and it's not been seen before. So we're learning as the pandemic increases in its magnitude and affects a huge number of people. It is going to leave a scar. Undoubtedly, a lot of people will be lost, but I'm hoping that lessons will be learned so that we can apply it in the future. And I think what people need to understand is there's plenty of food for the whole world. I mean, there's 7 billion people. We can feed them all. We can keep them all healthy with a plant-based diet. And that is the key. We shouldn't do this to the environment. It is causing us harm in the long term. And you can see how nature has a habit of striking back and reclaiming its ground, but we don't seem to learn. I mean, after the swine flu epidemic, things didn't really change. Pigs are still factory farmed. After the mad cow disease again, which started off in this country, we still see those farming practices aim to drive down costs. And it is factory farming, I'm afraid, that really lets these viruses jump from one reservoir to another and spread across the globe. Also, of course, we travel a lot. I mean, it is a globalized economy. I mean, it started with patient zero in Wuhan, but as you can see, I mean, there's travel all over the globe, and it spreads very quickly before you can get a handle on it. So I think lessons are to be learned, and I'm hoping that human beings learn to save the globe also, learn to save the world, because, I mean, that is undoubtedly facing catastrophic climate change and due to largely our dietary habits. So hopefully people will step back a little, take lessons from this and change their habits. And I'm hoping lifestyle medicine comes into a whole niche category and comes into everyday life for everybody.
I agree with you, and it does seem like everything's converging in that way right now, to where it all makes sense that that's the next step that medicine takes. And I agree with you. I hope that that is truly what happens. And even if everyone doesn't, I know, I can tell from talking with you and your wife that both of you are going to have more of a focus on this going forward, and that's just going to benefit more people. The more medical professionals that embrace, this evidence-based and scientific lifestyle, the better all the patients are going to be, in my experience, in my mind anyway, really. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all of your insight, and I look forward to hopefully speaking with you again in the future. Hopefully, when we see that we've turned the corner on this coronavirus and that everyone is starting to adopt lifestyle medicine habits, really is what I'd love to see everyone do.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you for the message you're spreading. I think it's fantastic, and it's a step in the right direction. Thank you for having me on today.
You're welcome.